All right, we got the white pieces indeed. Always a choice. I'll start with e4. Lots of options here. Ooh, Caro-Kann. How to play against it. Interesting. Okay, I'll play d4 after d5. A lot of interesting suggestions, but I think I'm actually gonna go for one which is really easy to explain, and it's actually the exchange. So I'm gonna take on d5, and the reason why I think this can be so annoying is specifically the way that we're going to play it, which is bishop d3. And you just kind of don't let this bishop develop to any of the squares it wants to. Go c3. Yeah, so basically this would be an achievement. Like this position right here, to be sitting in this position, in my opinion, is an achievement. And I think white already has a noticeable opening advantage. Because if we were playing a London, which I could transpose to with bishop f4, it would be the equivalent of black playing c5, taking on d4, and playing e6 and not getting their bishop out. All good things for white. So I could go into a London here. I could also just play knight f3 castle, and that's going to be a good position as well. But it's all based on this. Like, there's not really an opening where black wants this. And even if black did want this bishop on c8, which sometimes you see, then they'll have a pawn on c5, and white will have a pawn on e3. But in this position, black's not only trapped with their bishop on c8, but it's as if they've already played pawn takes d4, pawn captures back on d4, which is another achievement for white, because that's like trading these two pawns, which is great. Now my bishop can see. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense what's happened here. There's like two very noticeable achievements for white already, and we're only on move 5, so it might not be reflected too much. Like I think black's position is fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but I'm still a little biased, and I would say that white's very, very comfortable out of the opening already. So now I would either go knight bishop f4 or knight f3. Bishop f4, again, I'm just like going into like London stuff, which makes sense. Or knight f3, just planning to castle. So kind of between those two moves here. Just having a think. I think I'll go bishop f4. Reason why I want to do this, I kind of want to play knight d2 quickly. We could leave the bishop, but I just don't see any reason to let black play bishop d6 for free. Like, if I don't put my bishop there, black's going to play bishop d6, and I don't see any point in letting that happen. So that's why I wanted to be first to play bishop f4. And bishop d6, I'm more than happy to trade. f3, we're going to castle next. And the difference in this position is going to be felt by these bishops. I'm pretty sure my opponent's position might start to feel miserable. Okay, so freeing move, e5, and probably necessary, but the lovely thing about this is that now my position is just better permanently for the rest of the game. even though it looked so good with, yeah, my bishop, whatever, now I've got another advantage, which is that is going to be an isolated pawn, period. That's just, that's how it's going to be. There's also a few reasons why you wouldn't normally do this while your king's in the middle, like queen e2, and also bishop to b5. So a number of reasons why I would say that black's not exactly in a great spot here. He's also nowhere close to castling. So we're definitely going to start every single variation by playing pawn takes, because that allows us to follow up with queen e2 or bishop b5. Right now, queen e2 makes no sense because e4 is going to happen. So I think we want to just start like this. Just trying to think of any reason why we might want to play knight takes. And there are a few reasons presenting themselves, not going to lie. Knight takes, queen e2. And then if f6, there's f4, which is a little bit of an added bonus, but I don't know. Then there's moves like bishop g4 to calculate. My instinct is really this, but I suppose you could make a case for knight takes e5. I think just keep it simple. Pawn takes is the instinct. It's pretty much what you're supposed to do. So now queen e2 forces black to play f6, which not really supposed to do. Definitely not. And I think we can just get kind of a comfortable position here without too much effort. So we can also castle, which, believe me, I actually really like. But I'm going to go with queen e2. I think this is proper. Forces f6, which is not a healthy move for black to play. This is why you don't do this stuff when your king's in the middle. So we'll see this. Yeah, now we definitely have some options, but one good one and very simple is bishop b5, because bishop d7, if takes, knight takes is not an option. Queen takes, loses a pawn. And if the king takes, or if the king moves, obviously all of those things are in my favor, because black will then have played f6 and moved the king. So certainly not good for him. So I think this is just really easy. The knight can't move. Give this check. And even if we wanted to play super, like, we didn't really want to play tactically after this, we don't have to go into a weird position. We can just castle, for example. We can just castle. So I like bishop b5 because it's nice and simple. And this has all come from a seemingly whatever move. Exchange, Caro-Kann, and bishop d3. It looks like it doesn't do that much, but if my opponent didn't play e5 this game, I think he was going to suffer as well. He did play e5, and his position's not that much better. Yeah, king takes. Yeah, it's not a bad position. I mean, he's playing it maybe as well as he can, but he's still just much worse. So most important thing, let's get castled. No point in keeping my king in the center here. You maybe could make an argument that you want to castle this way, but knight here, rook e8, like, maybe, but it just looks so unnecessary. Plus there's knight takes here, so it's like, you know, why bother? The instinct is so obvious. You should just castle and don't bother worrying about anything else. Black's pieces aren't developed. He's got a king in the middle. He's got f6 there. We'll take back if he takes, but otherwise, you know, rook d1 would be a fantastic move. Queen b5 check is looming. Rook d1 next. Knight maybe to d4, or maybe even knight c4. Can't be taken because of rook d1. Yeah, knight here guards the pawn, so definitely a good move. But, you know, I have an option. Queen g4 check immediately wins a pawn. But, you know, it allows rook over, and I'm not saying there's an immediate threat against the king. Like, there's not an immediate line that works, but it's definitely a strong move. And the pressure will just mount there. So I'm actually not sure if I like that, because I feel like this king can still be taken advantage of in the center. So I see queen g4, but I'm actually not not sure that I love it. I think it's time to develop my pieces. Now, knight here actually doesn't have a promising future, so I think I'm going to go knight a3. Just double checking. The only thing I don't like about this is if somehow he like stops me from doing that, but I'm a little torn about which move to do. Because yeah, knight d2, knight b3, knight d4 is so simple, so good. I really don't need to rush here. And actually, this queen b6, surprisingly, is kind of annoying. I'm not sure why. I don't think that should be annoying. But I'm gonna trust the instincts again and keep it real simple. Knight to the damn obvious square. Yes, I see this, but I think I'm gonna wait. Rook e1 needs to happen. I don't like playing rook e1 and making ideas with my rook when my other rook isn't even guarding the last rank. So like this move is necessary to connect the rooks, and so things actually feel okay here. Okay. That move, as you may imagine, is quite possibly the worst move on the board that you could have come up with as black, just because it's like, what are you doing? Opening up my queen, opening up the D file, just kind of an insane move out of nowhere, really. So yeah, that move is can only say it in so many words. That move is wrong. Do we go rook d1 first? That kind of looks good. Yeah, I like rook d1 first. Because I want to find out if he's moving the knight. Like, I have queen takes pawn, but I don't know. Queen c7, I win a bunch of pawns, but is that enough? I think keeping the queens on the board is necessary, so that's why I'm not too interested in that. So I'm just gonna play this. Lots of good knight moves next, plus I still have this available, and I'm always gonna, like, no matter where this king ends up, I'm gonna have like a random queen check to win this pawn, and I haven't used it yet, but I have it for later, and I think it's gonna be helpful. It's rook e8. He's clearly trying to run the king back there. I think knight c4 is the move. Obviously, I want to play rook takes here, so the knight needs to move, and I think this does the trick. Knight e4 kind of does the exact same thing. Basically, his best move seems to be like queen c6 next. I could go like that, but again, I don't like queen c7. Just trades. It's kind of boring. Not what I'm looking for. So knight needs to move here. Knight here, queen there, rook takes d4. King c8 loses immediately. King c7, and then I think we spy that move we've been talking about, which is queen g3. If knight e4, I don't know, queen e5 takes, and then king c7. The reason I like this move is like it doesn't allow queen e5, and it also leaves my queen attacking the pawn. So knight e4 is like tempting, but I really dislike the fact that the queen gets blocked. So might all be winning, but I think this is the move. Takes here, and then we'll have a very important queen move so that we don't trade queens with our opponent. This move is unfortunately insufficient due to this, which just pins it, which is why I was never concerned about it. And I guess there's queen takes b7, king e6, and then takes. Is that beneficial for us? I think it is. I think this is a good thing. Now we take, and if the king goes here, takes, king goes back, there's knight d6. If the king goes here, and then like rook there, there's rook e1 with pressure on the knight. So I think this is the right idea. But yeah, you can't survive with the king in the middle of the board. It's just a fact. And now this will force that move, and I guess there should be a mate coming up here, yeah. Good game. GG. Gonna have a look at this one for a sec. It was a nice game, but I mean, really, I would only draw attention to the opening in this one. Like, takes and bishop d3 is kind of it's a well-known move that doesn't like it doesn't like win off the out of the opening, but it causes black some very basic issues that if they're not like comfortable solving them, e6 for example, they don't really realize what's going on, they just get a really bad position. Like, you think to yourself, oh, like bishop gets there, covers this move, so then black would obviously go here, right? Because they want to play bishop g4. And the whole point of this opening, the whole point of this line, is that white could play a move like h3. So this is like the whole reason you play the line. So you play h3, and you pretty much tell black that no matter what, they're not developing their bishop to f5 or to g4. And you just give him a problem early on in the opening that it's kind of like one of those things where you tell someone they can't do something, and simply by the fact that they can't do it, they become enraged and like they try to find a way to make it possible. And as soon as they maybe admit that they're not able to do that, they assume their position is worse, and they're probably correct. Like, e6 is not the end of the world, but because you win the little mini battle of like, yeah, haha, you can't move your bishop out, then you usually get off to a good start in the opening. Black has a few things they can do. I mean, they can play g6 after knight. They can play like g6 and bishop f5. This is a whole system. I still think white's doing very well there, but it is a way you can play. You can also just, yeah, leave the bishop on c8. The main way that black plays is kind of similar to what my opponent did, but a little bit better. He played knight there, I played c3, and it's like knight f6, h3, and then black pretty much should play e5, because if white's going to delay developing the knight that long, guess what? It's time for e5. But the thing about this is like you have to put up with an isolated pawn. So white has again sort of won the mini battle. Doesn't have an advantage, but black has an isolated pawn, and personally I find isolated pawns pleasant to play against. So I would be happy with this position. But black should play this, and if they don't, they sort of convince themselves slowly that their position is just not very good. So my opponent played e6, and already I'm looking at a position that's like plus 0.5, like it's just extremely comfortable. And e5 was not a good move by black, like it was quite wrong. And by the way, knight e5, I knew I had that instinct for something, but I still like d takes e5. Yeah, if they don't play e5 though, and they play knight f6, like we castle, we play knight d2, we play rook e1, we play knight e5, and it's like that bishop is so bad. I might play f4 next. This is turning into like a absolutely perfect stonewall position. So I think black can get these really, really ugly positions if you're not careful. Like it seems like a very unassuming opening, but I think this bishop d3. Strong players use bishop d3 a lot when someone plays the Caro-Kann against them, because they're like, oh, all right, this guy knows a bunch of theory. Let me just play this. And it's like, you know, you tell me what you're gonna do. So it's, I think it's a very successful, it's such a small sideline, and it's really like, doesn't really create a big opening advantage, but I think it throws a lot of players off their game, and it just doesn't let them develop their pieces where they want to. Like, when you think about the Caro-Kann, literally what is the point of the opening? The point of the opening, quite literally, is never play e6 before your bishop goes out, right? Is like the whole essence of the opening. Never play e6 before the bishop goes out. And so what does this line do? This line says, how the fuck are you gonna do that? It simply asks the question, okay, how are you gonna do that? Because according to me, that's not possible, buddy. So I like opening ideas that take the whole intention of someone's opening and put it to question. Obviously, there are going to be computer lines that black can play. It's not like completely winning, but I like openings that seem to at least pose a question or scare the opponent into thinking like, wait a minute, the whole point of my opening is to do this and I can't do this. Wait, what? Wait, what? And they get confused and they fumble, and all of a sudden I got my opponent playing e6 in the Caro-Kann. It's a ridiculous move. It's never good. Yeah, it's super easy to remember. It's like no theory, nothing going on. Bishop d3 is nice and easy, so I like it.